Good morning. It's President's Day, February 21st, 2022. This is To My Liberal Friends, and I'm John Haddo. I want to talk today about how the media covers things differently depending on the narrative they want to do. We all remember the terrible events of January 6, 2021, when, in my opinion, people laid siege to the U.S. Capitol in a criminal manner, and they are being charged and prosecuted. And the media called them all kinds of names and everything. Now, some of them were just protesting, others deserve to be prosecuted. But let's look at what's going on up north right now. In Canada, there is a protest by truckers, and they are in Ottawa blocking some streets, but they are protesting some of the rules that the Canadian government has imposed on them vis-a-vis the COVID pandemic. And the media has compared them as if they're criminals. Writing in the New York Times, Paul Krugman called the truckers' protest, quote, a slow-moving January 6th, end quote, with the truckers cast as economic vandals. An MSNBC commentator said that ineffectual law enforcement response to the Ambassador Bridge blockade smacked strongly of what happened with the Capitol Police before and during the attempted putsch on January 6th. A CNN correspondent called the demonstrations, quote, an insurrection, sedition, end quote. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. Others have taken it to pointing out the perceived race-based double standard among those who they decried the Black Lives Matter protests in the United States, but now support the Canadian trucker protests. But how about the media? When left-wing protesters were burning down buildings, looting stores, running rampant through cities, they were called protesters, committing acts of civil disobedience, not seditionists, not terrorists, none of these things. So the popular misconception out there is that somehow this is a white supremacist movement. And a writer in Newsweek said it will be uncomfortable for some to read this, but the truth must be said. We have no reason to believe the majority of truckers in the convoy are racist. In fact, appropriate for the month of February, the trucker convoy is actually a Black History moment. And compressing them into one little box is wrong. Rupa Subramaya spoke to nearly 100 protesters, and she couldn't find any of these right-wing conspiracies that the media said were there. Benjamin Ditcher, a leading spokesman for the Freedom Convoy, who recently appeared on Jordan Peterson's podcast, told that author, quote, I'm Jewish. I have family in mass graves in Europe. And apparently, according to some of the media, I'm a white supremacist, end quote. And if you look at the violence, there's been very little. Are they peacefully protesting? Are they blocking streets? Yes. Is that an irritant? Yes. And some people will be inconvenienced. And frankly, I would hope that they wouldn't do it. But the next time you see civil protests in this country by people on the left and the media doesn't treat them the same, you know the hypocrisy is apparent, it's there, and it's real. And the heavy-handed way the Canadian government has come down on these people, it boggles your mind. In activating Canada's Emergency Act, which is akin to our War Measures Act, it's strikingly remarkable. And it's been only exercised 3 times before since each during World War and when Quebec separatists kidnapped and murdered the Deputy Prime Minister. In other words, it rarely ever happens in Canada. But Premier Trudeau has decided he's going to come down hard. And even though a third of the Canadian side were the protesters, about the same percentage that support Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the last election, the protests have grown even as some Ottawa residents reported feeling like, hey, I'm tired of this in my neighborhood. And I understand that. But to call them anything but what they are as civil protesters is quite wrong and shouldn't be done. But we're going to see the media again. We now know truckers are coming to Washington, D.C. The Capitol Police are erecting a fence again. And the media will call these people January 6th all over again. And they're not. These are the people that President Biden doesn't seem to get They're the truckers that move the goods that helps break the problems with the supply chain. They're the people we need out there on the road, and putting mandates on them is not solving the problem. And we need to fix that. And the media needs to start looking at each individual situation and treat it accordingly, not brandishing some slogan about these people are this or that. They're just citizens both in Canada and here in the United States. And quit treating them differently than you do left-wing protesters. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.